last Friday, House Republicans passed additional tax cuts. Now, to be clear, it's unlikely to be taken up by the Senate, which means it's unlikely that this will be passed into law. But nonetheless, while everyone was hyper-focused on the Kavanaugh hearings for good reason, House Republicans pushed through a new round of tax cuts that would permanently extend the cuts for individuals in Trump's signature law that are set to expire within a decade. So just for further context, the tax cuts that were passed include permanent cuts for corporations without any closure of those corporate tax loopholes. So the tax rate went from 35% to 21% for corporations. Those are permanent. But the tax cuts for the middle class will expire in 10 years. And so the House Republicans are trying to make those permanent. Now, the bill passed 220 to 191. Passing the legislation was the final item on House Republicans' agenda before adjourning to spend the next month campaigning for re-election. But we also have some Democrats to blame for this because they were certainly involved in helping to pass this in the House. Democrats Jackie Rosen of Nevada and Kyrsten Sinema of Arizona voted yes. They're running for Senate in tight races against Republican opponents who backed the original tax law. And so they feel like they have to vote in favor of making these individual tax cuts permanent because they want to appeal to the more conservative voters in the districts that they're running in, except they're running against Republicans, so why wouldn't the conservatives just vote for the Republicans instead of Republican light? Okay, nonetheless, the third Democratic yes vote came from Representative Connor Lamb, who won a special election upset in March to represent a heavily Republican district in southern Pennsylvania.
Okay, so let's begin to break this down. Can't help but get into the Democrats even though it's disproportionate. So what do I mean by that? All of the other Democrats in the House voted against it. So even a lot of the very conservative Democrats that we have criticized in the past. But their overall philosophy, which is when running against a Republican, try to out-Republican him, still exists, and it's maddening. That's why I'm super proud that we ran Justice Democrats against both Rosen and Sinema. Sinema is one of the worst Democrats in the country. She's voted with Trump over 60% of the time. So, wow. And you want to talk about lesser of two evils, this is what we get. We get Republicans who vote with him 98% of the time or Democrats who vote with him over 60% of the time. So I wish to God they had both lost in their primaries. They're not remotely progressive. Now we're gonna have to be in a situation where you gotta, if you're a progressive, you say, well, at least they don't hate black people. At least they don't hate gay people. That's the only thing I got left to root for, right?
Yeah.
And so it's maddening. Connor Lamb is so important for the Democrats to win that seat so that they could have a bigger majority. For what? Isn't it so that we get progressive policies? No. That's the part they always leave out. We got to get Democratic victories. For what? Okay, Connor Lamb got a Democratic victory. Now he votes for the Republicans. Not only is that an extra vote for them, but it allows them to say that it's bipartisan. Your beloved Connor Lamb that you raised all that money for gave tax cuts to the rich just like we did. So it must be awesome and bipartisan. So those three Democrats have done great damage to progressive causes. And now, is it gonna work? Sinema and Rosen's team say, well, now they've been running ads against us saying that we voted against the tax cuts for the rich. First of all, you should be thanking them. That's votes that it's polling at 37%. Look at Connor Lamb's race. In Connor's Lamb race, they ran ads against him saying that, he voted against the tax cuts. The Republicans stopped running those ads because it was helping Connor Lamb. That's why he won. But he, like a maniac, I don't know who he raised money from, presumably incredibly wealthy people that he is now indebted to. He turns around and votes against the thing that actually got him elected. Okay, and those Sinema, et cetera, you think that they are going to now turn around and stop running ads against you? Are you that monstrously stupid?
Yes, they are. They are.
No, they say all the Democratic consultants quoted in all the articles are like, oh no, this will negate the Republicans' advantage in those states. First of all, they have no advantage. They have no advantage. They stopped running the ads because it's counterproductive. Second of all, It's not going to stop them from running ads if they think it's helping them. How could you be in politics all this time and not recognize it? You think one of the other Republicans are like, oh no, Sinema voted for our donors. No, let's lay off her. Go ahead and win.
You know what would have been much more effective? All right, so they're running those ads, arguing that you voted against the tax cuts, which, as Cenk perfectly mentioned, is not polling well anyway. 37% approval rating according to a recent Monmouth University poll. So they are doing you a favor by running those ads, but you know how you can counter that or fight back? Damn right, I voted against the tax cuts because they're going after your Medicare, they're going after your Social Security. Because those are popular programs. Doesn't matter if you're Democrat or Republican, those are programs that poll well. And the reason why the tax cuts are not polling well is because the tax cuts for the middle class to begin with, tiny, okay? But more importantly, people know what lawmakers are gonna do to make up the loss in revenue. And it's to cut the programs that they've already paid into, Social Security, Medicare. So you run an effective ad addressing that, but they're weak. These are weak Democrats. Oh my God, I'm in a conservative district, what should I do? Why would they vote for you if you're conservative light? Why?
And Nevada's not a red state. It's not a deeply red state like Wyoming, and there's no chance of victory, and so I have to pretend to be incredibly conservative. No, you can run on your principles and win. You're just choosing not to. And by the way, again, to be fair to the rest of the Democrats, they are running on, they're gonna cut your Social Security and Medicare. But now these three are going around the country undercutting you. And they're going around saying, no, the Republicans are right. This is a wonderful tax plan. I can't believe my fellow Democrats say that it's endangering Social Security and Medicare. And then this is where the mainstream media drives me crazy. So, some of the articles they talk about the Democrats, the rest of the Democrats are running on the Republicans. They're saying cutting Social Security and Medicare. But wait a minute, Paul Ryan said it. He said we're going to go after entitlements. A lot of people said it. Marco Rubio said it. So it's not. This is a Democratic strategy and this is a Republican strategy. If you say that, that's totally fine, that's true. But you have to give the context. Is it true? It is true, the Republicans do want to cut Social Security and Medicare. They made that very clear. What do you think entitlement reform means? I challenge any of these reporters. What do you think entitlement reform means? Or do you cover politics? Do you know politics at all? Or don't you know anything? They do want to cut Social Security and Medicare. It is not arguable. But nope. That's a Democratic claim, right? The Hill talks about how the Democrats claim that this gives the top 1% extra benefits. No, that's not a Democratic claim. Are you a reporter? You can say the Democrats claim that and then say it's true or untrue, right? But you didn't follow up. It is true. The first round of tax cuts gave on average, the people in the top 1%, $61,000, I'm sorry, millionaires, $61,000 on average as a tax cut.
Each year.
Each year, okay. Tax cut 2.0 would give them, and now this is for people in the top 1%, an extra $40,000. So in total, $101,000 on average for everyone in that category. And so it's not a question. Did it help the rich more? Yes, it most definitively did. So that's a fact. For God's sake, be a reporter. Okay, now back to the people who are mainly guilty though. Let's not lose track of that. Almost the entirety of the Republican Party, and the only 10 Republicans in the House who voted against it did so because they're like, well, they're from New York, New Jersey, and one guy from California. And they're like, well, this raises taxes on our donors because our donors don't have the exemption for the state taxes anymore. So it's not like they're good guys. They only voted for it because it hurts their particular donors.
Well, look, I want to be as fair as possible. And I think that, yes, the donors are always number one in their eyes, but I think they're also very much concerned about their constituents here. Because what it would do is it would cap the amount of state taxes you can deduct when you file for federal taxes, right? And so everyone's gonna feel that once we start filing for taxes in 2019. And so I think they are genuinely concerned about what that's gonna do to them as politicians.
I hear you, but capping it at 10,000 means that it actually does not affect most people. It affects the wealthy a lot more.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And those wealthy are the ones that keep them in business, okay? So, but anyway, even if you give the credit to those 10, agree or disagree, everyone else in the Republican Party was like, oh, another new giant set of tax cuts for the rich. Fantastic. So let's talk about how gigantic they are. So in the first 10 years, it'd be a little bit over $600 billion that it would add to the deficit. But wait, we're just getting started. At the next decade, it would be $3.15 trillion they would add to the deficit. So if you thought the last set of tax cuts were monstrous, you were right. That put a $1.9 trillion hole in the deficit, okay, in the budget, and that created extra deficit of about $2 trillion, right? This will add, when you take the over 600,000, 3.15, about $3.8 trillion more. So we're talking about 5.7, right? I had to do the math there for a second. $5.7 trillion that of deficit, extra deficit created by the Republicans. So we're having a conversation about how the Republicans care about deficits? No. Every reporter in the country should be writing that Republicans, through their actions, have shown definitively that they do not care about deficits. That's not an opinion. You think it's an opinion. Or write, hey, you know what? Whether they say they care or don't care, it is a fact that they have put about a $6 trillion hole in the deficit. $6 trillion. Why? For the benefit of their wealthy benefactors. That's who the Republican Party is.
But Cenk, remember, the Republican Party does care about the deficit in very specific situations or in specific contexts. So when it comes to providing universal health care, that's when they care about deficits. Right?
No, your family can't have health care. You know, you don't have health care. Do you know what happens if you don't have health insurance and your kid gets cancer? Your kid dies. Republicans, oh, now, hey, deficits, we got deficits. We can't afford brain cancer treatment on your kid. Oh, $6 trillion for my donors? No problem. No problem at all. That is the core of the Republican Party. Serving the rich, and they're almost all rich by themselves anyway, of the rich, by the rich, for the rich. And I'm gonna give you one quote here from Kevin Brady, who's so proud to be leading this. He says, this relief goes to the middle class families and low income families working their way up. Not remotely, no it doesn't. So there are some cuts that goes to the middle class and some that barely affect the people at the low end of the socioeconomic spectrum, okay? But overwhelming majority of the cuts goes to the rich. He says, he makes this absurd point that they always make and that nobody ever challenges. He says, who do you trust? Washington to spend your money or you and your family? Well, Representative Brady, it kind of depends, doesn't it? Now, if I'm going to buy a car, I don't need my local politician's advice on which car to buy or which sneakers to buy. But if we're going to put out a fire, I would like to have the government have that money so they could have a fire department and they could put it out. I would not like to rely on my own family to go put out fires in the neighborhood. That's a really bad idea. Okay, well, who do you trust to have the money, the government or the? Okay, Kevin Brady, would you like to take away all the money from the government so you can't have a military? You told me that your family would spend it better. Why don't they go defend us against Russia and China and Al Qaeda and ISIS? Come on, step up the Bradys. You probably have a Brady bunch, don't you? All right, let's go up and at them. Get all of your asses over to Syria and let me see you spend that money better. But in our media, we have these insane, nonsensical conversations as if this is what reality is. No, they work for their goddamn donors. They take billions of dollars from their donors, and in return, they give them trillions of dollars of our money. That's how they rob us day in, day out. This is one of the most brazen things I've ever seen. And this is the House, it's never gonna pass in the Senate because they need 60 votes and they know it's not gonna pass in the Senate. So why do they do it now? It's not polling well, they're pulling all their ads, so why did they do it? You know why they did it? It is for the Republican Party to tell their donors before the election, don't worry, keep funneling that money to us. Give us millions of dollars to run deceptive advertising, because if we get back in charge, you're gonna get all the cash. It's gonna be a great return on investment. Bribe a Republican today, it'll make you trillions of dollars. That's what this was about. Thanks for watching this free clip of the Young Turks. Don't forget to become a TYT member today. For more exclusive content, join now at tyt.com/join.